Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for July 17, 2023, the Spamming Your Friends edition. We begin with that story from the New York Times. Your employer can put limits on what you put out on social media, but they should not be able to force you to spam your friends. This came in a letter to the editor, or at least to the work friend section, which Roxanne Gay answers, and a employee asked, can an employer mandate employees who are not members of a social media team use their personal social media account to share content about their employer? The answer is legally your employers cannot force you to post professional content on your personal social media sites. They're asking you is a boundary which they should not cross. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Mingy Sun reporting, the director of the CFTC's whistleblower program will step down. Christopher Ehrman, who's led the program since 2013, will move into private practice and, of course, representing whistleblowers. So Christina McLaughlin, who recently returned to her role as associate director of the office after 2 years in the private sector, will serve as acting directors. Ehrman will begin his new job after Labor Day. Tips from the whistleblower have led to about increase in enforcement action, with about 30% of the tips involving active cases where CFTC whistleblowers came in. Next up, from Reuters, the Portuguese company Altice co-founder was detained in a corruption case. It's a telecom company, and it is the Portugal's Department of Investigation and Criminal Action said 90 raids were conducted across Portugal last week, and a large number of employees' private homes were raided. It's an investigation involving allegations of corruption, tax fraud, forgery, and money laundering. The suspicions that led to the investigation was the Altice Group's decision-making process of rigging procurement with practices that were harmful to the group's own companies and customers. And finally, a story comes to us from the Financial Times, and it's part of the Economist Exchange series. And what I thought was interesting about it is it posits that trade sanctions could be seen as simply another name for protectionism. While they are intended to punish, i.e. the U.S. and EU sanctions against Russia, they're also a form of protectionism. Take heed. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.